Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Rockford's production of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. This is an abridged production, and we're doing it as a reader's theater. Starring in the cast is Beverly Broyles, Carol Fox, Brian Gustafson, Jessie Parker, Libby Parker, Reverend Misha Sanders, and Bill Scarpaci. And now we'll begin. Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge and Marley were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole partner, his only friend, and only mourner. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood years afterwards above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching old miser, hard and sharp as flint, secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Once upon a time, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house office. It was cold. The door was open that he might keep his eye on his clerk, Mr. Cratchit, who was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it resembled one coal. The clerk tried to warm himself at the candle. Scrooge's nephew came in the office door.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you.
Bah, humbug.
Christmas a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I am sure.
I do, bah, humbug.
Don't be cross, Uncle.
What else can I be when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas. Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, have dinner with us tomorrow.
Good afternoon.
I am sorry, with all my heart, to find you so resolute. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
When the nephew went out, a gentleman entered.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago, this very night.
I have no doubt you are as generous as he was. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, we take up a collection for the poor and hungry who have such distressful needs.
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons.
And the poorhouses, are they still open?
They are.
Oh, I'm very glad.
We choose this time because it is a time of all others when people feel the need the most. What amount should I put down for you?
Nothing.
You wish to remain anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish for, sir, this is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the poorhouses and prisons, and those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Good afternoon, sir.
The gentleman withdrew. Meanwhile, the fog and the darkness thickened outside. A child began to sing a carol outside his door. Scrooge called out, "Bah, humbug!" and the child ran away. At last, it was time to close his office. He addressed his clerk.
You'll want all day off tomorrow, I suppose.
If quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient and it's not fair. And yet, you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work.
It's only once a year.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Be here all the earlier next morning.
When Scrooge entered his apartment in the old building where he lived upstairs, he locked himself in, put on his robe, slippers, and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his dinner. The fireplace was paved all round with old tiles. Glancing at it, the face of Marley, his old partner, dead now for 7 years, suddenly appeared in several of the tiles. Scrooge closed his eyes and shook his head.
Humbug.
Just when he opened his eyes again, a servant's bell began to ring out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. The bell stopped, and now there was a clanking noise coming up the stairs. A ghost came through the heavy door.
Humbug.
It was Marley, his old partner, the same face, the very same Marley, in his usual clothes and boots. A chain that he pulled was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses made of steel. His body was transparent.
Oh, now, what do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then? You're picky for a ghost.
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Dreadful apparition. Why do you trouble me?
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not?
I do, but why do spirits walk the earth and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should go forth in the world and be shared in love and generosity. And if that spirit does not go forth in life, it must do so after death. I wander through the world, oh, woe is me, and see what I cannot share, but might have shared and turned to happiness.
Why do you wear a chain?
I wear the chain I created in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard, and of my own free will I wore it. It is made of all of my selfishness and meanness and my disregard for the poor, the sick, and the helpless.
Scrooge trembled more and more.
Do you know the weight and length of the strong chain you carry yourself? It was full, as heavy, and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have worked hard on it since. It is a heavy chain.
Jacob, speak comfort to me, Jacob.
I have none to give. I cannot stay. Weary journeys lie before me. When I was alive, I never knew anything but my own greed.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Mankind should have been my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, spreading happiness were all my business. Hear me. My time is nearly gone. I came to warn you that you will have a chance and hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
I think I'd rather not be.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to turn away from the path I have tread. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, the third upon the next night at the last stroke of 12. Look to see me no more, and remember what has passed between us.
The window magically opened, and the ghost leapt through it. Scrooge closed the window. He tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable. He went straight to bed and fell asleep.
Stave 2, the first of the 3 spirits.
Scrooge awoke to darkness. The hour bell sounded with a deep, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room. Scrooge, starting up, found himself face to face with an unearthly visitor.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
The spirit put out its hand and clasped him gently by the arm. They passed through the wall and now stood upon an open country road. The darkness and mist had vanished with it. It was a clear, cold day with snow upon the ground.
Good heaven! I grew up in this place. I was a boy here.
Ah, the school is not quite deserted. A solitary child is still left there, still. These are but shadows of the things that have been, and no one can see us.
They approached a big red brick mansion with mossy walls and broken windows. Entering the dreary hall, they found a long, bare room with lines of plain desks. At one of these, a lonely boy was reading, and Scrooge sat down and wept to see his poor, forgotten self.
I wish, but it's too late now.
What's the matter?
There was a child singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all.
The ghost smiled and waved its hand.
Let's see another Christmas.
Then they left the city and were now at a warehouse door.
Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again!
Old Fezziwig laid down his pen, rubbed his hands, laughed all over, and called out, "Yo-ho, my boys! No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick, Christmas Ebenezer. Let's clear away the room." In came a fiddler. In came Mrs. Fezziwig with a big smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the neighbors, the cook, the baker, the cousins, and away they went dancing. 20 couples at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle, up again, round and round, always turning up in the wrong place. Old Fezziwig cried out, "Well done!" When the clock struck 11, the ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig, shaking hands with every person as he or she went out, wished them all a Merry Christmas. Scrooge turned to the ghost.
A small matter.
Small?
Why is it not? He has spent but a few dollars. Is that so much?
It isn't that. The happiness he gave is quite as great as if it cost a fortune.
What is the matter?
Nothing particular. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all.
My time grows short. Quick.
Scrooge observed that the spirit's light was burning high and bright. He seized its cap and pressed it down on the light to dim it. The spirit dropped beneath it so that the cap covered him completely. He was back in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze and reeled to bed, where he sank into a heavy sleep.
Stave 3, the second of the three spirits. The bell struck 1, and Scrooge awoke. A blaze of red light streamed upon his bed and was more alarming than a dozen ghosts. He thought for a moment he might be on fire. He got up and shuffled to the door. The room had undergone a transformation. The walls and ceilings were hung with greenery, from which bright berries glistened. The crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, as so many little mirrors had been scattered there. And such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney. Heaped up to form a throne were foods of all kinds, along with mince pies, apple pies, plum puddings, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense cakes, and steaming bowls of punch. There sat a giant, glorious to see, who held a glowing horn-shaped torch and held it up to shed its light on Scrooge.
Come in! I am the ghost of Christmas presents. Have you ever seen the like of me before?
Never. Spirit, take me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion and learnt a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have anything to teach me, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe.
Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. The scene vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning. The sky was gloomy, yet there was an air of cheerfulness. The people were shoveling away the snow from the pavement, calling out gleefully to one another, and now and then throwing a snowball. The grocery shops were half open, and the fruits were radiant in their colorful displays. The spirit sprinkled incense from his torch on poor people's meals as they ate standing on the streets, and it was an uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice, when there were angry words between some, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humor was just restored directly, for they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day.
They went straight to Scrooge's clerk's home. There the spirit stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling and the sprinkling of his torch. Mrs. Cratchit, dressed poorly but cleanly, laid the cloth, assisted by her daughter Belinda, while young Peter moved about importantly in borrowed dinner clothes from his father. Two smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in and danced about.
What has got your precious father and your brother, Tiny Tim?
In came Bob with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim! He bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
And how did little Tim behave?
As good as gold and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in church because it would make them remember who it was we remembered on Christmas Day and who loved all the children no matter what.
For dinner there was never such a goose. It was small and flavorful, but stretched out by the applesauce and the mashed potatoes. It was sufficient for the whole family. Mrs. Cratchit left to bring the pudding in. Everybody had something to say about the dessert, but nobody said or thought it was small pudding. For a large family, it would have been flat heresy. When dinner was done, they raised their glasses of punch, and Bob proposed.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
Bless us.
Bless us.
Listen,
Oh, God bless us, everyone.
said Tiny Tim, the last of all.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see an empty seat in the chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
No, oh no, kind spirit, say he will be spared.
What? If he be likely to die, he'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Scrooge hung his head to hear his own words and cast his eyes upon the ground. He knew in his heart that his poor treatment of Mr. Cratchit was the cause of Tiny Tim's failure to thrive. Then the spirit and Scrooge were in a bright room filled with people.
Yes, yes, I heard that. Yes, I heard that.
And Scrooge heard a hearty laugh. Surprised, he realized it was his nephew.
He said that Christmas was a humbug as I live. He believed it too.
More shame for him, Fred, said Scrooge's niece.
He is fairly cranky. However, his bad humor carries its own punishment. His wealth is of no use to him, and he hasn't the satisfaction of thinking that he is ever going to benefit us with it. But I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. He takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence?
Indeed, I think he loses a very good dinner, observed Scrooge's niece.
The consequence of his not making merry with us is that he loses some pleasant companions. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not, for I pity him. He may complain about Christmas till he dies.
After tea, they had some music, a simple air, which had been familiar to child Scrooge at the boarding school, and he softened more and more. Scrooge begged like a boy to be allowed to stay and watch, but the spirit said it could not be done. He and the spirit were again upon their travels.
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
Tonight, at midnight. Hark! The time is drawing near.
The chimes were ringing 11:15 at that moment. Then 2 small children appeared under the spirit's robes. They were a boy and a girl, dressed in rags, thin and hungry.
Forgive me, are they yours?
They are man's. The boy is ignorance. The girl is need.
Have they no home or place to go?
Are there
Are
no
there no
Christians?
Are there
There are no workhouses.
The bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost and saw it not. As the last stroke faded, he beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like the mist along the ground towards him.
Stave 4, the last of the spirits.
The phantom slowly, silently approached. It was shrouded in a deep black garment, which left nothing of it visible save one outstretched hand. The mysterious presence filled him with dread.
I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
The spirit pointed with its hand.
You are about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us. Is that so, spirit?
The spirit nodded.
Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any specter I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to follow you. Will you not speak?
No reply. The hand pointed straight before them.
Lead on, spirit.
The phantom moved away and Scrooge followed. The city seemed to spring up all around them, with store owners hurrying up and down, clinking the money in their pockets, looking at their watches. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of business folk. The hand pointed.
No, I don't know much about it. Either way, I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
What has he done with his money?
I haven't heard.
It's likely to be a very cheap funeral, for upon my life, I don't know of anybody to go to it.
The phantom's unseen eyes were looking at Scrooge keenly. It made him shudder and feel very cold.
The ghost then conducted him to Bob Cratchit's house, where the mother and children were quietly seated around the fire. Peter had a book. The mother and her daughters were sewing.
And he took a child and set him in the midst of them.
Why did he not go on? The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand to her face.
The color hurts my eyes.
The color? Poor Tiny Tim.
They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time.
Past it, rather, but I think he's walked a little slower than he used these last few evenings, Mother.
I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, very fast indeed.
And so have I, often.
Bye.
But he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so that it was no trouble. And there is your father at the door.
Spectre, tell me, back before, what man was it who had died?
Receiving no answer, they went on until they reached an iron gate. Scrooge paused to look round a graveyard, overrun by grass and weeds. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one.
Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only?
Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
No, spirit! Oh, no, no, spirit, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intervention. Why show me this if I am past all hope? I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may erase the writing on this stone.
In agony, he caught the spectral hand and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw the phantom's hood and dress shrink, collapse, and dwindle down into a bedpost.
Stave 5, the end of it.
Yes, the bedpost was his own, and the room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in.
The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. Ah, Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello there. Oh, hello. I don't know how long I've been among the spirits. I don't know anything. Never mind. I don't care. Hello.
He stopped as he heard the churches ringing the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Running to the window, he opened it and he put out his head. It was a glorious day. "Why, what's to-day?" cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes.
Eh?
What's today, my fine fellow?
Why, Christmas Day! Don't you hear the bells?
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello!
Do you know the poulterers in the next street? Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one.
What? The one as big as me? It's hanging there now.
Is it? Go and buy it. I am in earnest. Tell them to bring it here that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown.
The boy was off like a rocket.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
Scrooge dressed himself in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people by this time were pouring forth, and Scrooge regarded every one with a delightful smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant that 3 or 4 people said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you." And Scrooge said often afterwards that all of the sounds he had ever heard, those were the sweetest to his ears. He had not gone far when he beheld the gentleman who had walked into his counting house the day before and said, "Scrooge Marley's, I believe."
My dear sir, how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, that is my name. Allow me to ask your pardon. And will you have the goodness?
Here Scrooge whispered in his ear the sum of money he wanted to donate.
Lord bless me, my dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
If you please, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you.
Scrooge went to church and walked about and watched the people and found that everything could give him pleasure. He had never dreamed that anything could make him so happy. In the afternoon, he turned toward his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock. But he did it. He knocked on the door.
Fred?
Why, bless my soul, who's that?
It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?
Let him in? It is a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness.
The next morning, Scrooge was early at the office, hoping to get there ahead of his clerk. The clock struck 9, no Bob. 1/4 past, no Bob. He was full 18.5 minutes late. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come in. Bob's hat was off before he opened the door. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello? A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas cup of mulled wine, Bob. Make up the fires and buy a second coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if anyone alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, of all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone.
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 God bless us, everyone.